do, which is amazing, but do you ever worry that you're ignoring the kind of the actual structural, institutional things that do hold people back? Because it's very well and good saying to people, become spiritual, discover yourself, whatever, but if you are being held back by a system of oppression, it is harder to do that.
I think awakened people, like, now listen, I don't agree with like placing the onus for social change entirely on individuals, i.e., hey, stop using plastic bottles, then magically the problem of plastic will disappear.
Or believe in yourself and then you'll get whatever you want.
Yeah, but I feel that the more people have their own genuine awakening, the more they will be enabled and facilitated in overthrowing whatever structures they're being confronted by. But if people are not awake to their own oppression, then and for me, like, it's the universality of a spiritual awakening that's interesting. If you awaken spiritually and you're like an out of work former industrial worker in the north of England, your awakening is going to take on a particular complexion, but in my opinion, a genuine awakening, we're like, oh yeah, and there's a racial component to this, there's gender sex component, like, and you wouldn't go, no, but fuck it, this is only about me. Or if you're, you know, a woman from a metropolitan background whose struggle is about oppression on account of her sex, an awakening would mean, hang on a minute, my feminine nature is being oppressed.
I fully agree, and that's, I think, what I'm trying to do. But how do you take in those other things when you're telling people to be spiritually awake?
Well, this is what I think at the moment, Scarlett, is that I'm not interested in creating little cells of people and sending them into existing structures and see if you can overcome Boris Johnson or see if you can overcome capitalism. I'm now interested in forming new alliances that exist outside of these structures, as much as we can ever exist outside of global capitalism. For God's sake, it covers the globe. But like creating relationships, systems and structures that are founded upon principles that are agreed on by its participants. So for example, if me and you are in a conversation, it's pretty clear some of the things you're going to bring to the table, and then other people that I'm talking to, they're going to say, well, this has to be accounted for. Now, what I reckon that might lead to is mass devolution, that if you have your ideals, there are people whose ideals will be at odds with yours. Well, those people are going to have to run their own deal. Yeah. You know, so what I think that it will involve a real challenge to the status quo, a real offer of an alternative way of living based on individual freedom, collaboration between individuals, and the establishment or creation of new systems. For me, it's not apolitical, it's uber political. Totally. One of the things I learned pretty recently is that the secular project of making spirituality distinct and discrete from material and political philosophy is a very deliberate thing, because true spirituality means we got to be fair to one another. We've got to treat each other justly. We've got to change all the systems that the world's based on. I think, and I agree, and I think that's why you have to be hyper spiritual and hyper practical. Because what I always felt up until now is that I was being told, just believe in yourself, and there were all these systems that were holding me back, and meaning that I could have believed in myself as much as I wanted, but I was still, being very much abused and stuff. And so I think it's about doing both, isn't it? Yes, it is. And I feel that in a way that spirituality is entirely practical, because spirituality for me is, how am I going to cope with living in this world, with all of its complexity, its corruption, with the conditions of material life, transience, death of everyone that I love. How am I going to deal with it? Well, I better have some relationship with some kind of truth about who I am. And if it isn't activated, if it doesn't lead to me being a kinder person, then what value was it anyway?
Yeah, but it's two-sided. It's how am I going to cope, but also how am I going to change it so I don't have to cope as much.
My feeling is, you're right about that. But my sense is that the more of us that become awakened, the more of us become activated, the less easy it will be.
I completely agree with that. Yeah. So and I see that in a lot of young people, which is really encouraging.
Where do you see it?
I do a lot of work with teenage girls, and there's a sort of way that they understand feminism that isn't binary and isn't secular, as you've been saying. It sort of just is who they are. It's a part of everything they do. There's a real open-mindedness to the way that the world can be that I would actually describe as very spiritual.
Yeah, because say, like, if you like, you're talking to a 14-year-old and you're talking about some of the issues that we've discussed, that what I would invite is, can you discover what it is you really want? Are you able to look beyond the conditioning of your family, your class, your nation, your time, and see what it is? There a thing called you, and is there something that you want?
Your family has held.
Yes, the prejudices that they've bestowed upon you. God love them. Like, are you able to see a person beyond that? Well, what do you want, and what is in the way of you achieving that? I agree that this is no time for trite platitudes such as, you know, be yourself and pull yourself up by your bootstraps and that. But like, it's interesting that I feel that perhaps we are approaching the point where identitarian politics and spirituality can become very, very collusive and collaborative, not divisive and polarizing.
I agree.
Thanks for watching this podcast and going all the way to the end of it. Would you so kind as to click the bell? It might not be there, because over there. And subscribing so that we can infiltrate your serenity and peace of mind with jangling bells and buzzes. Thank you.